Okay, so you might be wondering. I did 3 episodes this week, and now it's a bonus 4th episode. What is that all about, you may ask? So something came up that I thought I can't wait till Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday next week. And unbeknownst to me, and maybe you might be aware of this. So Howard Sackstein's recent article in the Jewish Report about how he, as a Jew, feels in South Africa has done the rounds. A friend of mine, Gerald. Gerald is somebody that we've been monitoring regarding his diabetes. And Gerald has become almost like a correspondent. I use him as a springboard, so to speak. And Gerald's cousin in Australia, down under, the land of down under, he got Howard Sackstein's article. That's how far it's gone. So I thought to myself, me dealing with these serious issues, be it how the Jews are feeling in South Africa and what's happening with David Tiga and what's going on, South Africa being allegedly a proxy of Iran. I can't do it myself. So I brought in your favorite right-wing radio presenter, Stephen Marks. Stephen, former presenter of Chai FM. Stephen, you don't mind calling yourself right-wing. You don't think it's an insult. You actually refer to yourself, because we just came back from the Mug and Bean now, you called yourself right-wing.
I am. I'm proudly conservative, proudly right-wing, yes.
Hitler was right-wing. Mussolini, Stalin was right-wing.
So is Netanyahu right-wing.
So you don't mind being right-wing?
No, I have no problem being a conservative, being right-wing. I have little time for middle-of-the-road posturing. You've got to take a side. And,
yes, but do you think right-wing has done well in history?
Well,
how has history judged this right-wing business?
Well, let me put it to you this way. How has left-wing politics helped humanity? Certainly hasn't done very well for South African.
How has...
Or the Biden democratic dispensation.
What has Biden done wrong?
Well, I mean, it's in tatters, America.
How is it in tatters?
Culturally, politically, financially, America's in tatters, and that's entirely not true. A democratic construct.
But that's completely not true.
Well, of course, it's true.
Whatever problems America might have, you can say that's a legacy of the Trump administration.
They're also teetering on civil war there, much like Israel.
And that's because of Biden?
Well, it's because of the left-wing narrative, because of the liberal narrative.
Okay, from the holistic big picture point of view.
Yes.
How does history judge left-wing?
Well,
is left-wing not seen as good, just, humanitarian, democratic?
But now you see, what you've done now is you've just changed the entire narrative to sway the discourse. Left-wing is not necessarily good, humanitarian, and kumbaya. Absolutely not.
And right-wing?
Neither is right-wing. But that's the side I've chosen.
You feel comfortable choosing the right-wing?
Yes. I'm comfortable choosing conservative thought in terms of politics, in terms of religion, in terms of social development.
You use the term conservative. Do you think the years of Ronald Reagan, Republican, conservative, you think it's the same as today? When you say you're a conservative today, I think compared to just from the American politics, if you called yourself conservative in 1985 or 1986, compared to who calls himself conservative today? Donald Trump.
I tell you what it is. I think the original middle of the road people, the moderates, are now considered right wing, because the left have moved so far to the left that the moderates are now considered right-wing. So I think that kind of explains my feeling to it.
Stephen.
The left has moved so far left to a point of terrorism, essentially. The moderates, I was a moderate, so now I'd be considered right-wing.
Why terrorism?
Because the left-wing, not necessarily physical.
Terrorism?
Absolutely. I believe the extreme left wing is not far off the Nazi right wing activity.
Whoa!
Yeah. I'm not talking about the genocidal side of the Nazis, but certainly their radical idealizations of home and country.
How would you talk? But then, how would you explain the Supreme Court in America pushing the Roe v. Wade abortion thing?
You have to separate judiciaries from the actual governments. So the American Supreme Court, well, you have to, you must. That's how a democratic dispensation is. You have to separate the judiciary from the government. It has to be independent.
Okay.
That's why problem countries have a judiciary that is influenced highly by the government.
Thank God I don't have an ulcer, because if I did have an ulcer, it would have ruptured by now. And you'd have to be calling Hatzola
But you are a notoriously left-wing thinker.
I just see myself as normal. I'm just normal.
It's not normal. To be a left-wing thinker is considered this hippie, intellectual, Birkenstock wearing, tweed jacket wearing.
Do I look intellectual? I mean, really?
Well, do you understand what I'm trying to get at? As well as your good wife, Bernice.
Let's pause there.
Yeah.
And let's just start on. So there's this article of Howard Sackstein going around.
Yes.
So let's just go over the gist of the letter. Let me start off and you can just finish off what I've left out. So the gist of Howard Sackstein's article was that he, as a Jew living in South Africa, he's very unhappy and disillusioned, and quite frankly, he's scared. He feels there isn't a future for Jews in South Africa, and he doesn't know, he's actually going to encourage Jews. Did he say this? I can't remember. Did he say he's going to encourage Jews to leave or not? I can't remember.
One of the interesting things that he said in the article, which was basically titled, "Is it time to go?" or "Time to go."
And is it time to go? And did he say it's time to leave?
Well, he said that one thing he did say was that an American NGO last year...
Was it last year?
Was it last year, apparently, had come to South Africa to look at perhaps making plans for mass evacuation of Jews
evacuation
from South Africa, because...
Operation Solomon.
Operation Chaim Shmerel. But the issue is that an American NGO coming here last year...
And their conclusion was?
Well, I don't know what the conclusion was, but at the time, Mr. Sackstein laughed it off and said, this is ridiculous. And in the article, he says, now that seems foolish of him having laughed at it, because it appears entirely possible that a mass evacuation may just be on the card. Not on the cards. I say that not on the cards, but maybe necessary.
Wow. Now, he draws this kind of thinking. Since October the 7th massacre with Hamas paragliders, terrorists going into Israel, murdering, massacring, horrific stuff. Horrific stuff. He felt that presidents of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, did not react favorably. Showed no sympathy to the Jewish community.
There was a cursory condemnation of the attacks by the ANC and Cyril Ramaphosa. So, they did the absolute minimum necessary thing to do and condemn those attacks. But they never referred to Hamas as terrorists. They referred to them as militants or jihadists or freedom fighters or resistance fighters, which is garbage. Okay, we know who these people are. The free-thinking world know who these people are. The civilized world know who these people are.
So Howard Sackstein feels that as a Jew in South Africa, he doesn't feel like he belongs there anymore?
Well, I think
is that accurate to say?
I think the prevailing thought at the moment is that as a South African Jew, I'm embarrassed to have South African citizenship. The betrayal by the ANC Hamas-aligned government.
Really?
Yes.
ANC Hamas-aligned?
Without a doubt. You look at Naledi Pandor, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who goes to Iran just after this October the 7th, and all of a sudden there's an ICJ hearing in the Hague of South Africa taking Israel to court for genocidal ambitions, which is garbage as well. But the bottom line is, it took the South African converted Muslim Pandor to go to Iran.
But you say Muslim converted Pandor as if that's a problem. Is she not allowed to convert to Islam?
She's entirely allowed to, but her agenda, she's bringing Islamist agenda into the South African political discourse.
But let's look at the bigger picture. let's go back a few steps. Even Madiba, the late President Nelson Mandela,
Yes.
he basically said, the world is not free until the Palestinian people are free, something along those lines.
He also said that Israel is a vital part of the world and deserves to be respected and independent and the right to exist. As much as Martin Luther King says, when you talk anti-Zionism, we are talking anti-Judaism, we are talking Jew hatred, anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. That is the crux of what Martin Luther King said.
Okay. Let's just go back into the South African context.
Well, and Mandela is regarded as a modern-day Martin Luther King.
Okay, so the population of South Africa is 60 million. There's about how many Jews in South Africa?
I'd say about 40,000.
Has it gone down to 40? I thought it was 60,000.
No, I think it's closer to 40,000.
So there's less than 1% of the population is Jewish. Now, let's look at the bigger picture.
You can't even compare demographics or
but
populations.
Ramaphosa is a politician. This is Africa. Like what was he supposed to? What else was he supposed to do?
Well, you'd think that South Africa, that considers itself a rainbow nation with this glowing constitution, would have a little bit more sense and a little bit more thought and an international savvy to position himself and South Africa as a beacon of light that they like to think they are in terms of international thought. However,
his beacon of light thought, his way of doing it is he sees parallels between the Hamas struggle and the ANC struggle.
Yeah, they do. That's exactly it. But
that is the philosophy.
But the thing is,
that is the feeling.
We are not surprised. I'm not surprised, and no one with a modicum of intelligence should be surprised that the ANC aligns themselves with terrorists, with Hamas. They've done so throughout the ANC's history. They've always aligned themselves with the rogues of the world, and that's because they were once considered a rogue by the Afrikaans, by the NP government here. They were considered a terrorist organization and rogues. And they have aligned themselves and positioned themselves with rogue countries and nations. Iran, they're friends with Iran. Iran is one of the most dangerous Islamic fundamentalist countries in the world. They pose the greatest threat to world peace than any other country on the face of the planet, barring North Korea. And North Korea are small.
Okay, how many countries has Iran invaded compared to America?
It's not about that. It's about intention.
You don't think America, the USA, from an historical point of view, have caused even more issues around the world?
America has been imperialistic. Yes, they have. And they have reacted to 9/11. They reacted to 9/11 by going into Afghanistan.
Yeah, and making up stories about weapons of mass destruction that never existed.
The bottom line is it was a reaction. It was something that they reacted to.
After 20 years in Afghanistan, what did they achieve?
They didn't achieve anything. They did achieve one thing, and that is getting rid of bin Laden, which I think was a fundamental step in curbing international terror to some extent.
Getting rid of bin Laden. Bin Laden was just a figurehead. He was the leader, but...
Well, he was the guy that perpetrated the greatest terrorist attack in American history.
It wasn't just him. He had other people under him to organize.
But he was the leader. He was the point man.
Who organized?
He was the point man.
Who organized those flight school lessons? Who organized accommodation? Who organized the passport?
That was liberal politics allowing people like that into America unchecked.
Well, you have to let people
homegrown jihadists.
But Stephen, America is made up of immigrants. It's a country of immigrants.
Well, the thing is
that you and Trump understand that.
Absolutely, 100%. The thing is that you need to be a little bit stricter on who they allow in. Look at Japan. Japan are very strict. They don't have these problems. Parts of Eastern Europe are not allowing certain people in because they know they don't want to position themselves in an international terror arena.
You see, people are leaving countries that are undesirable. There's violence, there's unemployment, there's persecution.
Where's the persecution in certain countries that allows people to go into Europe? They want to make Europe Islamic, and they're coming from Islamic countries that are perfectly good for them. So they feel persecuted, so they want to go to Europe. But they don't want to be Europeans. They want to be Islamic in a European country.
Yeah, but you see, that's just your perception.
No, it's a reality. It's actually happening as we sit here. You're refugees.
So every single Muslim that goes into Europe wants to turn Europe into an Islamic state.
No, that's not true. What I will say is that, as I've said to you previously, 25% of world Muslims, international Muslims, are radicalized. 25%.
How do you know
Those
that?
are statistics.
That's not scientific.
There are statistics to that effect.
Yeah, but how reliable are they? And what does radicalized even mean?
Well, radicalized, as we discussed earlier, is not necessarily someone that will go out and buy explosives and go to the nearest synagogue or church and blow it up. Radicalized means people that have been changed and turned in terms of policy espoused by imams around the world in mosques every Friday afternoon, talking about cultural and physical jihad.
Okay, let's.
That's radicalization.
Okay, we can argue forever about that. Let's go back to Howard Sackstein.
Yes, we did stray quite far.
Being Jewish in South Africa, he doesn't feel welcome in South Africa as a Jew.
I don't know if he said that, but what he did say, he intimated a sense of betrayal by the ANC.
Okay, and
Hamas alliance.
Now, the thing is, my issue with Howard's article is that he points out all the negatives, but what about positives about staying in South Africa?
Well, what do we have positive for?
One of the biggest positives is, unfortunately, in South Africa, and I can't believe Howard just ignores this. One of the problems and issues in South Africa is that there is a massive skills. There's a massive what's the word? Shortage. Big word, shortage, that I couldn't come up with. Shortage of skills in South Africa. Unfortunately, our education system is disastrous. The majority of South Africans are not educated. And there's a shortage of skills. If you look at the Jewish community, and I'm generalizing, the Jewish community historically and presently, they put a great emphasis on education. Except, of course, my parents. They were the exception.
Yeah.
So Jews in South Africa, in general, are at an extreme advantage because we are at an advantage because there's such a skills shortage that if you're a qualified CA or you're a doctor, you are virtually assured of employment in South Africa.
Okay, so
you cannot say the same.
You got to
differentiate.
You
cannot say the same.
No,
if you go to Australia, Israel, Canada, you're not guaranteed to get a job.
You got to look at the real facts on the ground. South Africa is, I'm not even going to say an emerging market. It's a third world despotic regime run by criminals. So the opportunities for educated people, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, in South Africa are limited because the employment opportunities in South Africa are severely curtailed by BEE still, of which 30 years of ANC rule have not really managed to make any headway in. So South Africa is if you got brains and you got money and you got any sense of the world, you're going to leave South Africa, like many Jews and non-Jews and black South Africans have left. Why? Because they don't see a future here for their children. Why? Because the government are just not interested in actually improving culture and improving the people of this country. They're just there to steal and to mess it up because they're not leaders. You got freedom fighters that have morphed into leaders of a country that they don't know how to run.
Other side of the coin.
Let's go.
How much better are other countries?
Well, they're not better.
In fact, it's a well-known fact that if you live in France, you don't walk around with this yarmulke, skullcap.
Certain parts of Paris, yes, and Marseille.
My brother lives in Toronto. Very religious Jewish man. He tells, because he's got a job, he's a podiatrist, he goes around to lots of different areas in Toronto. He says in certain parts of Toronto, he wears a cap to hide his Jewishness.
Well, I suppose look, I wouldn't walk around.
I'm not rushing off to Toronto.
I wouldn't walk around Lenasia or Laudium with a yarmie on. I wouldn't walk around Fordsburg with a yarmie on. I wouldn't walk around parts of Norwood in Johannesburg with a yarmie on.
You wouldn't?
No. There's parts of Norwood that are displaying Hamas flags. The green Arabic flags are being displayed in Norwood. That is an international terrorist organization that has a presence and an office and are welcomed in this country. It's absurd. It's absurd to think that terrorists that did October the 7th have offices and a presence and are seated at a table with our government, with the ANC government. It's ludicrous. In America and in Western Europe and even in Eastern Europe, these people are considered terrorists. These people are the lowest of the low, the scum, the inhumane, the barbarians that Hamas have a presence in this country. Now, I ask you, does that not tell you anything about the future of this country? A government that applauds and welcomes these people, these subhumans, have a place in this country. And the government just do it with glee and walk around with that Arab keffiyeh around their necks like it's normal.
Why don't I think along the same lines as you? Why am I just blasé? You have this
leftist kumbaya attitude that everything will be okay, and we're in the times of Nelson Mandela and the Rainbow Nation, and democracy will cure everything, and it'll all be okay, and the rest of the world is shit, and America's shit, and Europe is shit, and they got worse problems than we got here, and we can still walk around Glen Hazel with a kippah on, yes, but not for long. And that's what Sackstein is saying. Sackstein is saying that it's entirely possible that there may have to be a Jewish evacuation of Jews in South Africa. An evacuation of Jews.
I don't know, that's very melodramatic. An evacuation. Really?
You know how quickly Nazi Germany started? It wasn't, people sat there and said, nah, it'll never happen. Nah, it's okay, we Germans, everything's fine. And the next thing, they were on cattle cars going to the camps. And I'm not saying for one moment that there's a possibility of that happening in South Africa. What I am saying is that the government are making it very difficult to be Jewish in South Africa. If we look at the cricket fiasco that's gone on with this young boy who was fired and demoted from a national team purely because he's Jewish.
No.
For no other reason.
No.
I don't believe the garbage coming out of Lawson Mudley or whatever he's, Lawson Naidu. I don't believe that garbage.
See, Stephen, this is where people use twisted logic, right?
Right. Explain to me that.
David Teeger, who happens to be Jewish.
No, who happens to be a religious Jew, a Shomer Shabbat Jew.
Okay.
Yeah.
He made those statements. He was taken down. His position as captain of the under-19 cricket team was taken down because of his statements, not because he's Jewish.
Damon,
you can't just twist things and say he was taken down because he was Jewish.
Damon, do me a favor.
I'm not saying I support it.
Come on. Think about this for a moment, okay? He went to the Jewish Achievers Awards. He was given the Rising Star Award. He's dedicated his award to the Israeli soldiers that are fighting evil and fighting carnage from Hamas. And he's entitled to do that as a Jew and as a Zionist and as everything else, and it's entirely possible. You can't vilify the Israel or the Israeli army. This is where his allegiances lie. And he said that in his personal capacity at a private event. The fact is that he's also an ambassador to cricket in South Africa as a young Protea or a junior under 19, whatever, Protea captain, okay? And the CSA, in their wisdom, decided that his remarks were not becoming of an ambassador to a national team, purely from a political point of view, because Hamas and the ANC have this strong alliance, and a national captain espousing views supporting Israel and the IDF is not in line with government Hamas policy.
Okay,
and he was fired based on that.
Based on that. Not because he's Jewish.
Exactly because he's Jewish.
No.
Well, how many?
It's because of his statements.
99% of Jews are Zionists.
Not because he's Jewish.
99.
There is a difference.
No.
There is a
You are now
difference.
separating Zionism and Judaism.
Yes.
No, you cannot do that.
You can.
99% of Jews around the world are Zionists. In fact, South Africa has probably the most Zionist Jewish community in the world.
The biggest mistake that people are making, I'm sorry, you can divide Judaism with Zionism.
What is the most important prayer in Judaism? You must know. Shema Yisrael. 2 words. Shema Yisrael. What is the second word in that prayer?
Stephen.
Israel. Yisrael. We talk about Jerusalem.
Stephen.
Okay, come, give it back to me.
How on earth must non-Jewish people be familiar with a Jewish prayer? Please.
That doesn't matter. Israel and Judaism are inextricably linked. They have been for thousands of years.
How-
Pre-Islam, pre-Christianity.
How must non-Jewish people be familiar with a Jewish prayer? Please,
But it's
please
not
explain that to
relevant.
me.
It's not relevant in the context
You just
of...
try to make it relevant.
I'm making it relevant. You try to say that Judaism and Zionism are not related. They are inextricably linked. And I'm trying to make that point. Israel is known as the Jewish state. It's not known as the state that has a lot of Jews. It's known as the Jewish state. It is a Jewish state. And Tiga showed support for the Jewish state, for the army of the Jewish state. And he's
pause.
Jewish.
Okay, settle down.
If a non-Jewish person that happened to be a pro-Israel and pro-Zionist had said the same thing, he would have been fired as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, he
Exactly.
would have been fired as well.
Okay. Now I've lost my train of thought. Hang on. Now I've got to really now I've completely lost my train of thought.
But he may not have been fired. He may have been reprimanded and demoted, but it wouldn't have been about a Jewish thing. It would have been about not towing government policy. Tiga was fired because he's Jewish.
I've got my train of thought back.
Yeah.
I agree. It is very worrying and problematic that the ANC government interfered and instructed Cricket South Africa to demote Tiga of his captaincy, and then to come up with this Bobbermeister that it's about security and about worrying about disruptions. That was a complete Bobbermeister, and that is concerning.
Well, at the Potch game.
But I think to jump to anti-Semitism, I don't think that's accurate. I don't think it's accurate.
I cannot for the life of me see how you cannot see the relation between what happened to Tiga as not anti-Semitic. I can't for the life of me understand how you cannot see that.
Let me draw this
as a Jew.
Let me illustrate this analogy. Well, not analogy, but say hypothetically you have a group of anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic people that are going to disrupt a cricket game between the under-19 cricket team and whatever.
Yeah, we call that BDS.
That could be BDS, that could be PLO, that could be whatever.
Right.
You could interpret those people as theoretically or practically anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist and all. Right?
Yes.
So the CSA saying that they want to avoid that situation. They want to avoid these anti-Semites or these anti-Zionists causing problems. So then how can you then label the CSA as anti-Semitic?
Listen, no, because the CSA
doesn't make sense.
The CSA is a non-government organization. It's a private a cricket council of South Africa, whatever the hell they call themselves, that has to toe national line, has to toe party line. Being representatives of, or being the agency, the council that represents Protea cricketers means that they are a national aligned organization.
So the government is anti-Semitic, not CSA.
No, the government is anti-Semitic in its simple allegiance to Hamas. Okay, that speaks for itself. The fact that they aligned with Hamas, there's two sides. There's the wrong and the right side. It's black and white. You're either with the Jews or you're against the Jews. If you're with the ANC and Hamas, you're against the Jews. There's no other narrative.
Big picture historical outlook.
Yeah.
Let me just draw this picture.
Right.
And you won't like this, but this is my interpretation. Apartheid was bad. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did.
Apartheid didn't start in 1948. There's a big, long history. Generations of people disenfranchised, forced removal. You know that.
Well, some will say go back to the 1650s with Van Riebeck. You know,
There's a lot of actual trauma and inherited trauma. There are a lot of black South Africans that didn't go through apartheid, but they heard all the stories through their parents, their grandparents. There is a tremendous trauma.
No one's denying that.
So when they look at the situation between what's happening, Israel-Palestine situation, they see parallels, and emotions take over actual facts. Now, there's that expression, don't let facts interfere with a good story. So facts and the truth is not always the overriding issues. It's emotions. And as horrific and as terrible as October the 7th happened, that whole historical apartheid, racism history of South Africa, I think a large percentage of the South African community, they see past that. It's like, we are with Israel. Sorry, we are with the Palestinians, and that's the
Okay,
that is the thought. That is the thought process.
Okay, let me respond. Okay, so my response is this. First of all, yes, you are quite right. Apartheid was abominable, and the ANC liberated South Africa, and the rest is history. And aligning themselves with what they consider resistance and freedom fighters in Hamas is in line with their ideology. Fine. However, Hamas are a genocidal, by their own admission, organization that swears the destruction of Jews around the world and Israel. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, essentially, the South African government, by aligning themselves with these people, have made themselves pariahs in their own right and looked at as morons, especially given the fact that it's almost a failed country in itself. Okay, so if you're going to align yourself with people like that,
we're not even close to a failed country. But anyway,
we're entirely a failed country.
Not by definition of failed.
Well, listen. In terms of the economic statistics,
we're on 50%.
We are lower. We are junk status.
35% is a pass. We're on 50. Okay.
All right. We'll disagree on that. But coming back to the situation, it's so vast and so. It comes back to this apartheid libel that people have about Israel. Okay, people that talk about apartheid Israel have never been to Israel because there's nothing further from the truth. If you want to call the Palestinian territories apartheid, then I'd have to say to you, go to Saudi Arabia and go and see the different lanes on the highway that's dedicated to Muslims and to non-Muslims.
No, but two wrongs don't make a right.
Well, it doesn't matter. Don't be a hypocrite. Okay, don't be hypocrite about.
It's all semantics, Stephen.
Well, semantics. At the end of the day, semantics. In the Hamas chart, it says kill Jews. You know what? They did. They did exactly what their charter said. That's semantics.
But going back to the apartheid thing.
Okay, forget about the apartheid libel about Israel's garbage as well. Because if you knew anything about, if any decent South African that lived under apartheid went to Israel, they would not find Israel to be an apartheid state. You can ask Reverend Kenneth Meshwe.
Kenneth Meshwe
is a member of parliament.
He's a Meshuggah.
No, he's not. He's a Christian South African.
He's a
Christian South African that has been to Israel.
Stephen, he's a Meshuggah, man.
Based on what?
Jeez, I can't remember. He's a Meshuggah.
You got to give me an idea of what you mean Meshuggah. He's a member of parliament.
I can't even remember.
He has a big mandate of Christian Zionists in this country.
Which is Meshuggah.
Okay, and what about the IFP? Are they Meshuggah? They support Israel?
Meshuggah.
The entire IFP, 7 million Zulus.
IFP's history in the 80s of death squads and God knows what, not a great reputation.
Not our problem.
But can we just put Paul? Who's our?
Well, not the Jewish problem. We're talking about our problem. We're talking about Israel and South Africa. IFP is not our problem. They're an ally.
Can I just touch on this apartheid?
Please do. Go ahead.
I'm not obsessed with this apartheid analogy because it's all semantics.
But it's killed people. That has killed people.
Just pause for a second. Whatever's going on in Israel, with your West Bank there and your Gaza there, I'm not going to say it's apartheid, but are you telling me it's healthy? Are you telling me it's going well?
But you've got to go back to the history of it. You've got to go back to 48 when there were choices. The Palestinians had choices. They were given a vast amount of land. They chose to reject it.
But they wanted the whole of Israel.
I know. So Israel said, fine, we'll take what the United Nations have given us. And the Arabs said, no, we don't want that. We want everything. And with the result, they ended up with nothing.
In the words of Freddie Mercury, I want it all.
Yeah, they wanted it all. Now what they got? They got a parking lot in Gaza. That's what they've got. They've got nothing because they made bad decisions from bad leaders. They chose the wrong people. And even if they didn't choose them, which is more than likely like what happened in Gaza in 2005, Fatah was involved there in government. And 2 years later, Hamas came in and killed them and took over Gaza. There's not one Jew in Gaza.
Can we move on to one last thing I wanted to go into?
Yeah.
Just how's your blood pressure?
I'm strong.
Are you calm?
I'm calm. This is normal for me. What are you talking about?
Okay, just checking. Just checking. So, my mother, I was speaking to a relative of mine in Cape Town. I'm on the phone with her. She says she's telling me about Israel. Sorry, not Israel. The ANC government is a proxy of Iran. And the lawyers that went to the ICJ were backed by Iran. Now, she said it like it was a matter of fact. So I say to her, because like I follow the news quite a lot. I watch BBC, I watch CNN, I watch Al Jazeera. Yeah, I touch on, that's about it. And I follow the news in general. And I don't see any stories about South Africa being a proxy of Iran. Anyway,
well, no one's going to admit it.
So
no one's going to admit it.
Hank, hold that thought. So I say to her, how do you know this? I haven't heard of this. Oh, on Chai FM, she says.
Oh, well, that's
So I
not
say
a
to her-
reliable source. Do me a favor.
So she says to me, so she sends me this interview from Chai FM, a 10-minute interview between Howard Feldman, the presenter, and the former CEO of the South African Institute for Race Relations, Frans Cronje. And Frans Cronje and Howard Feldman, obviously buddy-buddy. There's no question or interrogation. They're just cheerleading each other about how South African government is the stupid idiots for Iran, and the South African government is a proxy of Iran.
Okay,
Now,
well, I think
come on.
the genesis of that, we all know that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Naledi Pandor, the convert, went to Iran.
You say the convert as if it's something bad.
Well, in this context, it is bad.
You
What it's
remind me
doing-
of Donald Trump.
No, what it's doing.
You
now,
remind
what
me
it-
of Donald
what-
Trump,
what-
always saying Barack Hussein.
100%.
I mean,
what
come
it's
on.
no, but what it's saying is that she has shown her allegiances. It's all about
So
allegiances.
what did she do?
She went to Iran
When?
on a visit
When?
a couple of months ago.
Maybe there was a special on dates and figs.
I don't think Iran do dates. They do bombs well. I don't think they do figs and dates that
A
well.
nice carpet.
Having
She could have been looking for a nice carpet.
a carpet bomb. But anyway, having said that, she is mates with these people. Now, being mates or being on congenial terms with the Iranian Ayatollahs is a problem.
Okay.
It's a problem.
You see, the
Okay.
thing is-
Then she comes back
Let's try to be
here.
objective.
She
Can
comes
we try
back
to be
here.
objective?
Hang on a second. She
What did
comes
she
back
do?
here.
What did she do in Iran? What was her thing in Iran?
It had to be political. She hasn't got family there. I doubt she has family
What
there
was she? But
in Iran.
How do you know what the narrative? What
The
did
bottom
she-
line is she came back, and that was the genesis of the ICJ hearing where South Africa took Israel to the court on libelous charges of genocide. That was the genesis. So we're assuming, and I will admit that, we're assuming that Iran had something to do with influencing the ANC's action at the ICJ.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see, that's a hell of a jump.
It is a jump. But you know what? If it walks like a duck, let's be honest.
It could be a duck.
It could be a duck. Okay? And the ANC, and certainly from the Islamist point of view, they don't lie about it. They tell you to your face. Like the ANC has done. They've basically said, we support Hamas, we do not support Israel. That is pretty straightforward and anti-Semitic in essence. In every possible way that is anti-Semitic. We support Hamas over Israel. We support Islamists over Jews. That is 100% conceivable. And that is exactly what I think it is. And I think based on that, and based on the decline of this country, the moral rot and the decay, the absolute lack of fiber in this country is a direct indication of where this country is going. And I don't think South Africa is safe for Jews going forward. I really don't.
It's not safe for Jews
I
going
don't.
forward.
No, I don't think so.
Sure,
And I don't
that's
think
fine.
the intelligence cluster or the security cluster have our backs at all. They do not have our backs. And it's a matter of time before we see a serious anti-Semitic attack in South Africa. Without a doubt. I think we have militant Muslims in this country, aligned with Hezbollah, aligned with Hamas.
Whoa.
The same guys that attacked me at
Stephen, Stephen, that's quite a jump.
No, it's not a jump. The guys that attacked me at that
No,
rally that I went to.
Okay. You need to contextualize what happened.
Okay, I went to a Hamas rally, you know what? I'll be PC about it. I'll be Damon about it. I went to a pro-Palestinian rally
From the river to the sea.
from the river to the sea,
Palestine
which
will be free.
river to the sea is a genocidal chant on its own.
Apparently so. I didn't know.
Well,
that.
I'll explain it to you.
No,
but having
it's
said,
fine.
But
Carry
having
on.
said that, I went to this thing because I was absolutely decimated by what happened to Jewish people on October the 7th. Okay, I went there off the cuff without any pre-planned. I just wanted to see what was going on. Okay? I keep an Israeli flag in my trunk just in case there's a protest.
You always need an Israeli,
I have to.
flag.
It's like I always have to have a knife and a
have-
khamsa in case they come for
You
me
have
in
a
the middle
spare
of the
pair of
night.
underwear as well.
No, all I need, no, I don't need that. All I need is my flag. Okay. So I go there to this thing, and there's a whole lot of people milling around
This is by the American embassy.
outside the American consulate in
Santon.
Santon Drive, corner Rivonia Road. It was a couple of weeks
Okay.
after the October
So you're
the
standing
7th.
there.
So I go there and I was terribly upset. And I thought to myself, you know what? These people are all chanting death to the Jews and
So what did you
Kayba,
do?
Kayba, al-Yahud.
Did they actually say death to the Jews?
They didn't say that in English,
Well,
but, in
there you
Arabic,
go.
but in Arabic they did.
How's your Arabic?
My Arabic's enough to know when they say we want to kill you. That's enough to
Okay,
know
what is
that.
it in Arabic? Tell me.
Well, they were talking about the ancient, the war of the Kayba. Have you ever heard of that? Al-Yahud.
No, why
About
would I
killing
know
the
that?
Jews. We will kill the Jews
You
at
see,
Kayba.
I'm not obsessed with this kind of stuff.
It's not obsession. It's just stuff that you want to know. If you
Okay.
want to
Okay, so you're standing
keep your
there.
head on, if you don't
So
want to
what-
be decapitated.
So what did you do?
So I decided, I was watching these people, I was becoming more and more enraged by this chant of Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, which indicates the death of all Jews between
Okay.
the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay.
Okay, it's a very simple concept
Okay.
that no one really seems
what
to
did you do?
identify. So
So
I
what
went
did
to
you
my car, I parked far away, which was good sense. I didn't plan on making trouble.
Okay.
But I happened to park far away just in case. I took my flag, I walked up the road there and I started watching them and I was filming them with my camera and my gimbal.
And where was your flag?
I had my flag around my shoulders.
Okay.
And I was standing opposite them. In other words, there's two
Okay.
two lanes on each side.
they went to-
so it's a
and they-
4-lane distance.
Okay.
Okay. I was standing, on the other side of Santon Drive, watching these people and filming them and talking into my camera as if I was
Okay.
interviewing. Okay.
Okay.
And I had a whole lot of people
So
behind
did you
me.
post this on a thing? What did you
I
do?
did post it. I had people
Why
walking.
didn't I see it?
You're not plugged into the right-wing narrative.
That's also true.
No, I'm only kidding. So I was talking and journalists came up to me. Why are you here? What are you doing? Why have you got your flag?
Okay.
And Reuters and Schmeuters
Oh,
and all
really?
these. Yeah, I want to interview you. What you doing here? So
So did the interview get broadcasted anyway?
I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know.
yeah.
But having said that, I spoke to some people. They said, why are you? What are you doing? And that's what happened. Then one guy comes across the road and says to me, there is no Israel. There is no. He walks up to me. Funny enough, this guy didn't cover his face. He was the bravest guy I've ever seen. He came up to me and he said, there's no Israel and this and that and this and that. And he came with a friend just in case I intimidated him.
He needed backstop.
He needed backup.
Backup, sorry.
So I swore at him in Arabic because I just was not in the mood for it.
What swearing in Arabic?
Don't worry about it.
How
Now,
do you know this stuff?
I know things, but I was
Do
unimpressed.
all your right
I was
friends,
unimpressed
do all
with
your
him.
Jewish right-wing friends know this
No,
Arabic
probably
swearing?
not. My Arabic is limited, but it was enough to irritate him. So because he came to intimidate me with his friend, so I swore at him and he went and he left and he said to the policeman who was standing next to me, he said, do you see this man? He's swearing at me. The policeman just ignored him. So
Yeah,
he
but
went
how
back.
would the police know?
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
so he went back to his terrorist bunch across the road and
His terrorist bunch.
and they were there carrying on with their Al Yahud and Kayba Al Yahud and blah blah blah
What
from
does
the river to the
Kayba
sea.
Al Yahud mean?
I explained it to you earlier.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, having said that, I'm now still filming and I'm walking up and down and I've got pockets of terrorists behind me.
Pockets of terrorists.
Yeah, people walking
Pockets
behind me.
of-
Well, wearing the death rag around their face and carrying the death flag.
death rag?
The death rag. You know that dishcloth they wear on their face?
The kafia.
Yes. Wearing that around their face
uh,
and carrying that watermelon flag.
What, the Palestinian
Yeah,
flag?
Palestinian flag,
Yes.
which is they use the watermelon as an analogy for the Palestinian flag. Okay, the watermelon. I don't know if you know that.
No, how would I know that?
So if you see watermelons, it's usually aligned with Palestine.
Okay.
Why? Because the Palestinian flag looks like a watermelon with the red, the black, the white, and the
So watermelon is
and the
not
green, and the
so
green.
watermelon isn't a
well, it's the national fruit of Gaza.
is it the
Who cares?
Okay,
Anyway,
yeah.
having said that, so these people are walking behind me, and I'm a little bit worried that I'm going to get a knife in my back. So I'm watching behind me, and I see policemen sort of coming closer, just edging a little bit closer as these people, and they're coming up to my camera and shouting, "Free Palestine and Free Palestine!"
And then
then it was fine. And I carry on, I walk up and I walk down. Then some more came across. Then one guy comes across with the rag around his face and the green Hamas with Arabic emblazoned all over it around his head. He looked like he'd come just from Gaza. He looked like he'd landed with his Gazan uniform on. Okay. And he comes up to me. And he comes up to me and he swears at me, and I've got it all on video. He says to me, "You better fuck off out of here. You better fuck off before you get hurt, and it's going to be bad for you, and blah, 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 and you better fuck off." And he was very nervous, and he was dancing around me a little bit like Muhammad Ali. Okay. And I said to him, "I'm not going anywhere." And he said, "You better fuck off." And he he wouldn't show his face. And his good wife came across the road as well. You'd think she would bring a bag of samosas with her, because that's what she looked like, until she put her death rag around her face, and because I was filming them. So they didn't want to, God forbid, they'd actually be recognized. And anyway, he left away. The cops got a little bit closer. Then I turned around and I was again at this protest. And another chap came up to me. A couple of marshals came up, and I could see things were getting irregular. So one marshal came up. You could see he had his marshal's thing on, and he had his Palestinian flag. And I'm one Jew standing across the road, doing nothing other than carrying my flag and showing solidarity for what these people had done to the Jewish people.
Okay.
Because they represent Hamas to me.
And then what happened?
So this one guy comes up, and he's wearing one of these Ayatollah-type hats, like a beige, looked like a cake tin on his head with a
I think it's called a fez, but anyway.
Kind of fez, and he had this beige dress on him. And he comes up to me, and he punches me, and he grabs my camera. Okay, and I've got it on tape. I could recognize him in a line.
Is your camera broken?
No, the camera. No, what happened was, so the camera fell down on the ground. He punched me. Someone kicked me from behind, and it was getting ugly. It was going pear-shaped. So my gimbal was broken and fell on the floor.
What's a gimbal?
Gimbal is a stabilizer. When you film something, when you have to carry a camera.
Oh, you mean
it stabilizes? It stabilizes
In other words,
so that was destroyed and smashed. I was on the ground, being kicked and beaten by these people.
Oh, really?
And one of the policemen grabs me, and the other policeman says, "Get his phone," and they grab my phone, and they hauled me out of this mess, of this fiasco, of this beating.
Oh, really?
This lynching by
So the police did well.
They did. They saved my life. All the bad things I have to say about the police, I need to give them this. They saved my life.
Well, they may not have
So
killed
they
you.
pulled me to the
They may not
side,
have killed
and
you,
they started
Peter.
walking me down Rivonia Road by the Sandton City, and they called on their radio for a police car to come, and I'm waiting. As they're pulling me now, I've got the Muslims behind me kicking me and punching me and trying to grab the flag. Okay, so I'm holding onto my flag, and the policeman says, "Don't worry about the flag, leave the flag." And I said, "No, I'm not getting rid of this, because I know they're going to burn this
So
flag."
you're prepared to die for your flag?
Well,
Okay.
I'm not going to let Muslims take my flag and burn it.
So you got your flag?
I got my flag. I kept my flag, and I fought them off, and they kicked me and they punched me, and the policeman held me, and I had these journalists shouting at me, "Why are you here? And why are you here?" And other Muslims coming around me saying, "Murderer, and you Zionist dog, and you this and you that," and everything. And I'm now waiting. I'm standing here holding my flag. I've got cops are pushing. You can see it on the video. Cops are pushing these people away from coming to lynch me. A police car arrives. They bundle me into the police car, and they drive away.
Where did it take you to?
They drove me around Sandton for a couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes. They said to me in the car, they said to me, "We saved your life." I said, "Thank you very much." I said, "I didn't break the law." She says, "Yes, we know you didn't break the law, but we saved your life. These people are very angry." I said, well, I didn't want to go into a political discourse with the policeman about why are these people angry, and I didn't want to go the to and fro about geopolitical, information between these policemen. So I said, "Thank you very much." I said, "Where's your car?" I said, "My car's there." They took me to my car. They said to me, "Now get the fuck out of here." That's what they said to me. "Get in your car and fuck off." So I got in my car. I ducked quickly into Sandton City for 10 minutes to collect my thoughts and to make some phone calls and to get off social media, because I know these guys, they know me and they recognize me from my Kai FM days, and I know the guys that are after me. I've had the threats, I've had the fatwa, the whole spiel. I know
really?
Oh, yeah.
You've been fatwa'd?
I've been fatwa.
Like Larry David?
Well, it's actually called a shmatwa.
You like a Larry David?
It's a shmatwa, okay? It's fatwa, shmatwa. Anyway, so I get in my car and I bugger off. I go north. I go towards Pretoria.
Why do you want to go to Pretoria?
They might be following me. They might be following me, these people.
You think so?
Well, I had to take some back roads, and I dodged around, and I went to Pretoria, and I stayed there for a couple of hours. I had a drink.
Really?
And I came home late that night, yes. I came home late that night. I didn't want to be followed. Otherwise, they followed me to my house. So this is what happened. And I stayed low. I had to lie low for a while. I closed all my social media accounts, and I went dark.
And now you on...
Now I'm on Damon
you're on
Calvari's
this
show.
Schmutter, you're on this Schmutter podcast.
At the end of the day, Israel and the right to exist is more important to me than the South African ANC Hamas alliance bullshit. Okay? People need to know we need to stand up for ourselves as Jews in this country and not take their bullshit. The bottom line is we may have to leave, because we might have to leave.
Okay,
I don't think they have our backs.
I think let's leave it at that. For some reason, I'm not on that same page. I don't know.
We've never been on that same
We're not on the same page. We're not even in the same library. We're not even it's yeah. Anyway, thank you, Stephen.